She stood under the spotlight, my slides glowing behind her, my sketches redrawn in her style, my words spilling from her lips like they were born there, and the crowd clapped for her. The applause hit me like glass shattering in my chest. Each cheer was a betrayal, each nod of approval a knife twisting deeper. My name is Rachel Carter. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever been robbed of your own voice, while everyone smiled, believing the thief was the genius? That was me, sitting in the back row, my hands clenched so hard my nails dug half-moons into my palms, watching my best friend perform a heist in plain sight. Her name was Lena Brooks. We had built everything together, side by side, late nights at my kitchen table, endless cups of gas station coffee, our laughter covering the sound of the printer whirring as prototypes spit out onto the counter, except now, standing on that stage, she looked like she had built it all alone. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, voice smooth, confident, rehearsed. This isn't just a product. It's a revolution in sustainability. I almost choked. My line, the same one I whispered to myself at 2 a.m., believing in something no one else could see, and they believed her. Every investor, every wide-eyed assistant with a clipboard, every millionaire shifting forward in their seat, eager to throw money her way. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run up there and rip the mic from her hand. But my body wouldn't move. All I could do was sit there and watch betrayal parade itself in high heels. The worst part? Her eyes flickered to me, just once. A flash. Like she knew I'd stay quiet. Like she'd already decided I was too weak to stop her. That single look burned me alive. I thought back to 3 weeks earlier, when she'd come over to my apartment with takeout boxes and that fake sweet smile. She had asked, "Hey, Ratch, mind if I keep a copy of the slides? Just in case my computer crashes?" And like the fool I was, I said yes, because that's what you do when you trust someone. You hand them your heart, your secrets, your work, never imagining they'd use it to build their own empire. While you watched from the shadows, the applause swelled, people rising to their feet. She was glowing now, soaking it all in. I tasted iron in my mouth from biting my tongue. I couldn't stay still anymore. When she raised her hands in a practice gesture, closing her pitch, the audience erupted again. Investors leaned toward each other, already calculating numbers. One man in a navy suit pulled out his phone, whispering to his assistant, "Get me a meeting with her by tomorrow." Her. Not me. My throat went dry. I stood. Slow, deliberate. My chair scraped the floor, slicing through the noise like a blade. Dozens of heads turned. Lena's smile faltered, and in that silence, I felt my pulse steady for the first time all night, because under my arm, in a plain black folder, was the one thing she didn't know I had. The thing she thought I was too naive to bother with, the patent papers filed. Stamped. Signed in my name. I held the folder against my chest, like armor, and took my first step toward the stage. The clapping softened. Murmurs rippled. Lena's face drained of color, and in that exact moment, when the room turned, when the truth hung heavy and unspoken, I knew this story wasn't going to end with applause for her. It was going to end with justice for me. But justice, I've learned, doesn't come quietly. It comes like a storm. And my storm had just begun. Every step I took toward the stage echoed louder than the applause had. My heels struck the floor with a rhythm that didn't belong to fear, it belonged to anger, sharpened into something lethal. Lena's eyes followed me, wide now, a flicker of panic she tried to hide behind that corporate smile. "Rachel," she said into the mic, voice brittle at the edges. "What a surprise. Everyone, this is my, colleague. Colleague, not partner. Not friend. Not the woman who built this idea from the ground up." While she practiced her speech in the mirror. I let the word slice through me, and instead of bleeding, I burned. The investors turned to look at me, curious, impatient, some annoyed that their golden pitch had been interrupted. The man in the navy suit raised an eyebrow, as if silently asking, "Who the hell is she?" I reached the stage. My folder felt heavy in my hands. "Colleague?" I repeated, my voice carrying through the room even without a mic. "That's interesting, Lena. Because when I filed the patent paperwork, I don't remember seeing your name anywhere." The silence was instant. Thick. Electric. It rolled through the audience like a wave, swallowing whispers, cutting through the tension until the only sound was Lena's shaky breath. Her smile faltered, lips twitching as if trying to find the right lie. This must be some kind of misunderstanding. I didn't move closer. I didn't need to. Instead, I opened the folder. Slow. Deliberate. I pulled out the crisp, stamped papers, holding them up for everyone to see. "My name is Rachel Carter," I said, my voice steady, cold. "I am the sole inventor of this technology. And I have the signed patent documents to prove it." The audience leaned forward. Some gasped. The man in navy muttered, "Holy shit." I could see her unraveling. Lena's chest rose and fell too quickly, her hands gripping the podium like it might swallow her whole if she let go. "Rachel," she hissed under her breath, forgetting the mic was still live. What are you doing? What you thought I never would, I said. For years, I had been the quiet one. The behind-the-scenes fixer. The builder. She had been the face, the polished smile, the loud voice, the one who loved the spotlight, but I was done being quiet. You stood here. I continued, turning slightly so the room could hear every word, and passed my work off as your own. You looked into this audience's eyes and lied. You stole what I created and dressed it up in your lipstick and heels. But you forgot something, Lena. Truth has a way of showing up when you least expect it. Murmurs turned into full-blown whispers now. Investors glanced at one another, their enthusiasm cooling into suspicion. Her mask slipped. Her cheeks flushed red, her voice rising an octave. She's lying, she blurted out, desperation cracking through. We built this together. No, I cut her off. My voice was calm, terrifyingly so. I built this. You copied it. You rehearsed my words, my design, my dream. But you don't get to own what you didn't create. And then I did the one thing she didn't expect. I stepped aside. I placed the patent papers directly on the podium, right in front of her trembling hands. Go ahead, I said softly, but the mic caught every syllable. Show them your name on those papers. Her hands hovered, then froze. She didn't move. Because she couldn't, the silence stretched, suffocating her. The audience was no longer clapping. No longer smiling. They were waiting, watching, judgment heavy in their stares, and that's when it hit her. She'd already lost. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to fight. I just needed to stand in my truth, and watch her drown in hers. The moderator cleared his throat, awkward, unsure. Perhaps we should take a short recess, but the investors weren't leaving. They weren't done watching the spectacle Lena had created, and the storm I had unleashed. I stepped back, my heart thundering but my face calm, and in that moment, something inside me shifted. For weeks, I had blamed myself for trusting her. For being stupid enough to share my files, my slides, my secrets. For letting someone I called my friend stab me in the back, but standing there, watching her squirm. Under the weight of her own betrayal, I realized something powerful. I wasn't weak for trusting. She was weak for betraying. I left her on that stage, papers spread before her like evidence at a trial, and as I walked back down the aisle, the whispers of the audience followed me, sharp and cutting. She stole it. Can you believe this? Who invests in a fraud? Lena's empire had started to crack, and I had only just tapped the hammer, because exposing her in front of investors was one thing. But stripping her of every ounce of power she thought she had, that was going to take more than a single night, and I was ready to burn the rest of her lies to ash. By the next morning, her face was everywhere, clipped videos of her stammering at the podium spread across LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube like wildfire. Headlines dripped with scandal. Tech darling accused of stealing patent. Investor darling or fraud? Rachel Carter confronts co-founder live on stage. And my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Some messages were from strangers, cheering me on, calling me brave, hailing me as the underdog who finally stood up to a corporate thief. Others were darker. From Lena, you ruined me. Do you know what you've done? You'll regret this, Rachel. I stared at those texts, feeling nothing. No fear. No guilt. Just an empty, hollow calm, because she still didn't get it. I hadn't ruined her. She had ruined herself, but her rage told me one thing. She wasn't going down quietly. By noon, she launched her counterattack. A glossy press release went out, painting me as an unstable former partner who was confused about ownership. She called our work a collaborative vision and claimed I was exploiting technicalities to seek credit. Her spin was slick, I'll give her that, but I wasn't interested in headlines. I was interested in truth. And truth has receipts. I pulled out a hard drive from the back of my closet, a graveyard of late nights and forgotten meals. It held every prototype draft, every timestamped sketch, every email I'd sent her with subject lines like updated design attached and don't share this yet. Proof. While she tried to build a wall of lies, I had built an arsenal of evidence. Still, I knew evidence alone wouldn't destroy her. People don't just believe in facts. They believe in stories, and I was ready to tell mine. That night, I sat in front of my laptop, camera glowing red, and hit record. My name is Rachel Carter, I began, voice steady, eyes locked on the lens. And this is the story of how my best friend stole from me. I laid it bare. The years of work. The late nights. The moment she asked for my slides. The silence in the crowd when I revealed the patent. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just told the truth, steady and unshaken, letting the weight of betrayal hang in the air. When I uploaded it, I didn't expect much. Maybe a few hundred views. By morning, it had 500,000. People weren't just watching, they were sharing. Comment sections filled with outrage, with support, with stories from others who had been stolen from, silenced, overlooked. The tide was turning, but so was Lena, because while the internet might have crowned me the underdog, Lena still had money. She still had lawyers. And by day 3, I got the email I'd been waiting for, notice of intent to sue. She was suing me for defamation. The audacity almost made me laugh. She stole my work, and now she was dragging me into court for telling the world the truth, but deep down, I wasn't surprised. This was Lena's way. She'd always known how to twist the knife, to play the victim, to flip the story until she stood on top of the rubble smiling, except this time, she was forgetting one thing: I had the patent. And a courtroom was the one place where paperwork mattered more than performance. Still, the thought of standing across from her in front of a judge sent a tremor through me, because this wasn't just business. This was personal. This was the girl who held my hair back in college when I drank too much, the one who slept on my couch when her boyfriends broke her heart, the one who once called me the sister I never had. Now she wanted to bury me with legal fees and headlines, and for the first time since the pitch, I felt the ache beneath my anger, because betrayal doesn't just steal your work. It steals the memories, too, but I pushed the ache down. I didn't have time to mourn. The court date was set for 6 weeks out. 6 weeks to prepare. 6 weeks to turn her own weapons against her. 6 weeks to make sure that when we stood in front of the judge, she wouldn't just lose a case, she'd lose everything she built on my back. That night, I spread papers across my kitchen table. My apartment glowing in the soft hum of a single lamp. Emails. Sketches. Invoices for parts 1 paid for. Messages where she promised she'd never betray me. Every scrap of her betrayal, printed and highlighted, and as I stared at the mess of my past scattered across the wood, I whispered to myself, almost like a prayer, "You wanted a war, Lena. You're about to get one." The courthouse smelled like old wood and nerves. Every step I took down that marble hallway felt heavier than the last, my folder tucked against my chest like a shield. The air hummed with whispers, the kind you hear before a storm breaks. When I pushed open the courtroom door, she was already there. Lena Brooks. Perfect hair, perfect suit, perfect smile, like she hadn't spent the last 2 weeks drowning in bad press. She looked at me with a smirk that said, "You don't belong here." Her lawyers flanked her like armor. 3 men in tailored suits, their eyes cold, their folders thick. Money bought confidence, and she had always known how to spend it. Me? I had one attorney. Sarah Klein. Late 30s, sharp eyes, no patience for liars. She wasn't flashy, but she was relentless. The kind of woman who could turn a whisper into a weapon. When she shook my hand, she said only one thing: "Don't flinch." The judge entered. The room rose. And the war began. Lena's lawyers went first. Their voices dripped with honeyed poison. "Ladies and gentlemen," one began, gesturing toward Lena like she was a saint. "This is a case of confusion, of exaggeration, of a personal dispute dressed up as theft. Ms. Brooks and Ms. Carter collaborated for years. Ideas were shared, sketches exchanged. There was no theft, only miscommunication. And now Ms. Carter seeks to tarnish Ms. Brooks' reputation with baseless accusations." Every word twisted the knife deeper. Collaboration. Miscommunication. Baseless. Lena sat there, chin high, eyes glistening with fake hurt. Like she was the wounded one. My stomach churned, but I didn't flinch. Then it was Sarah's turn. She rose slowly, papers in hand, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. "Your Honor, members of the court, this is not a story of miscommunication. This is a story of betrayal. Ms. Carter created something groundbreaking. She documented it. She protected it. And when Ms. Brooks tried to present it as her own, Ms. Carter had already filed for a patent in her sole name. That is not collaboration. That is theft." And then Sarah did what Lena didn't expect. She opened the evidence file. Every sketch, every time-stamped email, every line of code with my name attached. The courtroom projector flickered to life, screen glowing with my late-night drafts, my digital trail. "This," Sarah said, pointing, "is Ms. Carter's work. And here," she clicked to the next slide, "Lena's stolen presentation, is Ms. Brooks' copy. Identical, word for word." The murmurs began. Lena's mask faltered, but she wasn't done. "Not yet." Her lawyer stood again. "Objection. Many entrepreneurs borrow language from each other. Similarities are inevitable." "Identical." Sarah cut him off, voice like steel. "Not similar. Identical. Down to the spelling errors." The judge's eyes narrowed. I watched Lena squirm. She shifted in her chair, tugging at her sleeve, her nails tapping the wood. For the first time, she wasn't in control. Hours passed. Testimony, cross-examinations, paper shuffling. My heart pounded with every objection, every ruling. But I didn't break. Then came the moment I'll never forget. Sarah asked if I'd testified. I walked to the stand, my palms sweating, the courtroom staring holes through me. "State your name," the clerk said. "Rachel Carter." "And what do you do?" Sarah asked. I swallowed, my voice steady. "I invent. I build. I create things that make people believe in what's possible." Sarah nodded. "Did you create the technology in question?" "Yes." "Did Ms. Brooks contribute?" The ache in my chest tightened, but I told the truth. No. She watched me build it. She encouraged me. But the designs, the coding, the filing, those were mine. All mine. Sarah handed me a document. Can you identify this? The patent, I said, holding it up for the court to see. My name gleamed at the bottom in black ink. Only mine. The silence that followed was heavy. Lena's lawyer tried to rattle me. Ms. Carter, isn't it true that you willingly shared your files with Ms. Brooks? Yes, I said. Because I trusted her. Because I believed a friend wouldn't stab me in the back. That's not consent. That's betrayal. Something in my voice cracked then, not weakness, but weight. The raw edge of someone who had been gutted by someone they loved, and the courtroom felt it. I saw it in their eyes. Even the judge leaned back, studying Lena like he was seeing her for the first time. By the time I stepped down from the stand, Lena's perfect smile had shattered. She knew it. I knew it. The truth was no longer on her side. As the session ended and the gavel echoed through the room, Lena brushed past me in the hallway, her perfume sharp, her voice low enough only I could. Here, you think this is over? She hissed. You have no idea what I'm capable of. I turned, meeting her eyes, unflinching. You're right, I said softly. I don't. But I know what I'm capable of. And that should scare you more. Her face paled, and in that moment, for the first time, I saw it. Fear * desperation makes people sloppy. Within days of the hearing, Lena's carefully curated image began to fracture. The investors who once hovered around her like moths to a flame pulled away. Emails leaked, her assistants selling her out for a price, showing how she pushed them to mirror Rachel's drafts exactly. And still, she fought. Press releases poured out of her PR team like water from a broken pipe. Rachel Carter is unstable. Rachel Carter fabricated evidence. Rachel Carter is trying to sabotage women in tech. That last one almost made me laugh. Lena, suddenly rebranding herself as a feminist martyr, when she had stabbed her own sister in arms in the back for profit, but I didn't clap back publicly. I didn't need to, because silence is its own kind of weapon. Instead, I worked quietly with Sarah. We dug deeper, past the lies, into the bones of Lena's empire, and that's when we found it: fraud, hidden invoices, shell accounts, money siphoned from grants meant for development. Lena had been bleeding funds into her own pocket for months. The irony? If she hadn't sued me, I never would have looked. She had opened the door herself. The night we discovered it, Sarah looked at me across my kitchen table, the documents spread like cards in a game we'd already won. This, she said, tapping the numbers, isn't just unethical. It's criminal. I felt the breath leave my body. Not fear, clarity. Lena hadn't just stolen from me. She'd stolen from the very people she pretended to impress. Investors. Grants. The system she thought she had mastered, and now I had the match that could burn her entire house down, but I didn't strike immediately. No, justice isn't just about timing. It's about theater. I let her spiral further. At the next hearing, Lena walked in looking brittle beneath the gloss. Her smile was painted on too tightly. Her voice wavered. The courtroom could smell blood. Sarah slid the fraud documents across the table during cross-examination. The moment Lena saw them, her mask cracked. These are falsified, she snapped, voice rising. Then explain the wire transfers, Sarah said coolly. The judge leaned forward. Lena stuttered. The silence was deafening. It was the first time I watched her lose her words. And I savored it, but the courtroom was only part of the battle because, while Lena still had lawyers, still had money to burn, the court of public opinion was more powerful than any gavel. So I made a choice. I took the fraud documents to the press, not anonymously. Not quietly. But with my name, my face, my voice. This isn't just my story, I told the journalist, camera lights bright in my eyes. This is about every investor who believed in something real. It's about every assistant who worked unpaid overtime while their boss pocketed money. It's about every woman who's had her work stolen and then been told to smile through it. Lena Brooks didn't just steal from me, she stole from everyone who trusted her. The interview aired that evening. By midnight, her name was trending, not as a visionary, not as a feminist icon, but as a fraud. Sponsors pulled out. Speaking engagements cancelled. Her inbox must have burned like a forest fire. And me? For the first time in months, I slept without waking in a sweat. But justice isn't clean. It's not quick, because when someone like Lena falls, they don't just crash quietly. They claw. They grab. They try to pull you down with them. 2 nights later, I came home to find my apartment door ajar. My stomach dropped. Inside, papers were scattered, my drawers yanked open. Nothing big stolen, no laptop, no TV. Just chaos, and sitting in the center of my desk was a single note, written in her handwriting: you don't win. Not until I say you do. My hands shook as I held it. For the first time since this war began, fear seeped in, because this wasn't a headline. This wasn't a courtroom. This was her reminding me she knew where I lived, what I loved, what she could touch if she wanted. I called Sarah. She told me to file a police report. I did. But I knew how these things worked. Without proof, it would be brushed off as a dispute between ex-partners. So I didn't wait for protection. I tightened my locks, changed my passwords, moved my files to cloud storage with triple encryption, and I kept going, because if she thought fear would silence me, she had forgotten who I had become. I wasn't the girl who sat in the back of the audience with half-moons carved into her palms. I wasn't the friend who handed over slides out of blind trust. I was the woman walking straight through her storm, and I wasn't done yet, not until every last mask she wore was ripped away. Fear doesn't arrive all at once. It drips like the slow leak of a faucet, constant, relentless, until you're drowning without realizing the water has risen to your neck. After the break-in, I lived with that drip. Every creak in the hallway, every buzz of my phone, every shadow outside my window carried her name. But here's the truth: fear isn't the opposite of power. It's fuel, and I was burning hotter than ever. The next court date arrived under heavy skies. The rain made the courthouse steps shine black, like a stage polished for the final act. Inside, Lena looked different. Not polished, not radiant. Desperate. Her suit hung looser, her smile cracked at the edges. The internet had gnawed through her image like termites through wood, but when her eyes found me, there it was again, defiance. The kind of pride that would rather die than bend. Her lawyer tried to spin, but Sarah was ready. Every time they raised their voices, Sarah cut them down with receipts, emails, bank transfers, screenshots, and then came the nail in the coffin. Sarah called one of Lena's former assistants to the stand. A timid young woman with shaking hands. Her voice trembled, but her words sliced clean. She told me to copy Rachel's drafts, she said. Word for word. She said no one would ever know. Lena's face went white. Her lawyer objected. The judge overruled, and in that silence, the assistant's last words echoed like a death sentence. She said Rachel was too weak to fight back. The jury didn't move. Didn't blink. And Lena knew it. When court adjourned, she stormed past me, her perfume sharp, her whisper venomous. You think this ends in here? You're naive. I didn't answer. Because I knew she was right. Court was only one battlefield. But she was fighting a war she could no longer win. That night, I opened my inbox to find something new. An email. No subject line. Just an attachment. A video.my. Hands shook as I clicked it open. Lena. Drunk. Screaming at someone off camera. You think I need Rachel? She's nothing. I made her. I built this whole damn company myself, and she should thank me for letting her in the room. Her words slurred, her face twisted with rage, her voice shrill and unhinged. I watched it twice. Then 3 times, and I realized something. Someone had filmed her. Someone close enough to catch her mask slipping, which meant Lena wasn't just losing control in court, she was losing control everywhere. I didn't leak it. Not yet, because timing, I'd learned, was everything. Instead, I filed it away with the rest of my arsenal, a bullet I'd fire when the world's eyes were watching. Days bled into nights. Each hearing chipped away at her armor. Each headline tightened the noose, but the final blow didn't come from me. It came from her, because pride is louder than logic. And Lena had never known how to shut up. She called me one evening. Unknown number, but her voice, ragged, furious, spilled through the line before I could hang up. You destroyed me, she hissed. Do you get that, Rachel? You didn't just take my company, you took my life. I have nothing left. Nothing. And you'll never sleep sound again knowing I'm out here, breathing, waiting. My hand tightened on the phone. The air in my apartment felt sharp, unbreathable, but then I heard it, the wobble in her voice. The crack. For the first time, she wasn't the predator. She was prey, and it hit me. She wasn't threatening me anymore. She was confessing, because when someone tells you you've taken everything from them, it means you already won. I hung up without a word, and in the silence after, I felt it, the shift. The power no longer in her hands, but victory doesn't taste sweet when it's still half-cooked. I wanted more than her fear. I wanted closure. So I planned it, the final reveal. The one moment she couldn't spin, couldn't deny, couldn't survive, and when it came, it wouldn't just be in a courtroom. It would be in front of the world, because she had stolen my stage once. And I was going to take it back. The invitation arrived like fate. A month after Lena's last unhinged call, I opened my inbox to see the headline, Tech Future Summit, Women Leading Innovation. And right there, her name. Keynote speaker, Lena Brooks. My lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile, because even with the walls closing in, even with investors abandoning her, even with the courtroom stripping her down to bone, Lena still clawed for the stage. It wasn't about winning anymore. It was about being seen. Being worshipped. Being adored one last time, and I knew exactly where I'd end this story. Sarah raised her eyebrows when I showed her the flyer. You want to go? No, I said, my voice steady. I want to finish. We worked for weeks, sharpening every Blade. The patent papers. The fraud documents. The assistant's testimony. The leaked video of her drunken tirade, everything lined up, waiting for the right moment. The night before the summit, I barely slept. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My chest tight, my mind replaying every betrayal, her hands on my shoulder at the kitchen table. Her voice rehearsing my lines in the mirror. Her eyes meeting mine across the crowd, daring me to stay silent. Tomorrow, silence would die. When the day came, the hotel lobby swelled with suits and lanyards, coffee cups clutched in manicured hands. Investors. Entrepreneurs. Journalists, the same crowd that once clapped for her. The same crowd that once ignored me. I slipped into the back, the black folder under my arm, and then, like déjà vu, there she was, standing under the lights. Hair. Flawless. Smile painted on. Voice smooth and steady as she addressed the audience. My journey, she began, has been one of resilience, of vision, I almost laughed. Resilience, that was my word. My story. My fight, but she didn't see me in the crowd. Not yet. She carried on, weaving lies with the ease of a woman who had practiced deception her whole life. And the audience? They clapped. They nodded. They leaned forward, hungry for her story. It burned like acid in my veins, but I didn't move. Not yet, because revenge isn't just about the strike. It's about the silence before. The breath everyone holds, the second before the blade drops. When she finished her pitch, the applause swelled. Cameras flashed. Investors whispered numbers into phones, and then the moderator said, "Are there any questions from the audience?" The room shifted. Hands rose. She basked in it. That's when I stood, the scrape of my chair against the floor sliced through the applause like thunder. Her head snapped toward me. And the second our eyes met, her smile froze. "Rachel," she breathed, the mic catching the name she hadn't spoken in months. The room turned. All eyes on me. I held the black folder tight against my chest. My heart hammered, but my voice was calm. "My name is Rachel Carter," I said. "And I have a question for Ms. Brooks." A ripple of curiosity spread through the crowd. Phones tilted up. Cameras blinked red. Lena shifted behind the podium. "This isn't the place, it's exactly the place." I cut her off, and then, with a slow, deliberate motion, I opened the folder. The papers glowed under the stage lights, patent stamps, signatures, proof. I laid them out on the nearest table where the cameras could catch them, the microphones could amplify them, the audience could see them. The moderator stammered, "Miss Carter, what is this?" I raised my chin. "These are the signed patent papers for the technology Ms. Brooks just presented as her own. My work. My invention. Filed in my name alone. And every word she just spoke, every slide, every phrase, was stolen from me." The air shifted. Like the whole room inhaled at once. The applause died. The whispers rose. The cameras zoomed in. Lena's face drained of color. She reached for the mic, her voice shrill, cracking. "She's lying. But the room wasn't listening anymore, because on the screen behind her, the moderator had pulled up the documents I'd just laid out, projecting them larger than life, and across the top, clear as day, "Inventor, Rachel Carter." Gasps. Murmurs. The tide turning in real time. And me? I didn't look at the papers. I looked at her, because this was the moment I'd been waiting for, not the proof, not the applause. Her, watching the empire she built on my back collapse in front of the same crowd that once crowned her queen. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw her for what she truly was: not powerful. Not brilliant. Not untouchable. Small. And tomorrow, when the headlines broke, she'd be smaller still, because this wasn't the end yet. The final blade was still waiting, and when it fell, it wouldn't just cut. It would silence her forever. The silence inside that ballroom was heavier than thunder. Lena stood frozen, her manicured hands trembling around the edges of the podium. The confidence that once dripped from her every gesture had vanished, stripped bare under the spotlight. And me, I didn't rush. I didn't shout. I let the silence do the work for me, because silence is its own kind of applause. The moderator cleared his throat, eyes flicking between us. "Ms. Brooks, is this true?" Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Just the flicker of her lashes, the tight line of her jaw, the sound of her entire career buckling under the weight of my name. I stepped forward, my voice steady as stone. "She stole my work. She used my words. She took my future and wore it like a crown. And she thought no one would ever stop clapping long enough to notice." Gasps rippled across the audience. Investors exchanged frantic whispers. A journalist in the front row already had her phone raised, recording every second. Lena's composure cracked. "She's delusional. This is a setup." But her voice betrayed her, shrill and desperate, echoing across the ballroom like glass shattering. That was when Sarah rose from her seat in the second row. Calm. Composed. She walked forward, heels sharp against the marble, and placed her hand on the black folder. "Everything in here," she said clearly, "has been verified. The patent is authentic. The timelines match. The assistant corroborated the theft. And we have recordings of Ms. Brooks herself admitting she never filed. The screen behind Lena lit up again, this time with a video, her voice slurred. Laughing, no one's gonna care who signed the paper. They'll only remember who stood on stage. The room erupted, phones went up like a forest of hands, flashes blinding, reporters nearly falling over themselves to capture every second, and Lena, her mask shattered. Her knees buckled, and she gripped the podium as if it might anchor her drowning career, but no anchor could save her now. I walked closer, slow, deliberate. My heart didn't pound anymore. It was quiet. Still, when I spoke, it wasn't for her. It was for everyone who had ever been small, overlooked, erased. You all applauded her. You crowned her. You clapped while she stole. But today, I lifted the patent papers high, my name bold and permanent across the page. You'll remember me. The room broke into chaos, investors pushed back from their seats. Some shouted. Some cursed. Some laughed at the absurdity of it all. The moderator fumbled for control, but it was too late. The tide had shifted, and no one could stop it. Security approached the stage, not for me, but for her. I'll never forget the look in her eyes as they took her by the arm. The wild panic. The crumbling dignity. The silent plea for me to stop, but I didn't stop, because mercy was never hers to give me, and in that moment, under the heat of the stage lights, I realized the sweetest revenge wasn't in watching her fall. It was in standing tall, finally, in the space she'd stolen, and knowing she could never take it from me again. As they escorted her out, the audience turned, not to her, to me, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible. Journalists shoved microphones toward me. Investors leaned in, eager now, not for her, but for me, but I didn't bask in it. I didn't need to, because revenge isn't about applause. It's about reclamation. It's about looking at the ashes of what they built from your stolen bones. And knowing, you outlived it. The summit ended in chaos. Headlines exploded before I even left the hotel. Fraud exposed live on stage. Stolen patent scandal. The real inventor speaks. By nightfall, Lena Brooks was finished. Contracts cancelled. Reputation burned. Lawsuits multiplying, and me, I went home. Sat on my couch. Held the patent papers in my lap like they were something holy. The city outside buzzed, cars and voices and lights flickering through my window, but inside, it was quiet, finally quiet. I thought of every sleepless night, every sick knot in my stomach, every time I doubted myself, and then, slowly, I smiled, not because she lost, but because I won myself back. Days later, Sarah poured us 2 glasses of wine. She lifted hers in a toast to silence breaking. She said. I clinked my glass to hers. To never letting anyone write my story again. Because this wasn't just revenge. It was rebirth, and as the weeks passed, the world moved on. But the memory stayed, her collapse, my rise, the silence that became applause. Some betrayals carve scars you'll carry forever. But some scars? They shine, they remind you of who you were before they tried to erase you. And who you became when they failed. That's my story. My justice. My name, Rachel Carter, and from wherever you're watching this, remember me.